Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the bluest of blues, we'll cover it all here. Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So I had an epiphany over the weekend, and I hope you enjoyed your bye week, man. I most certainly did. I really, truly did enjoy the bye week. Got away for a little bit, visited the family. Going to do that again, obviously, this week with Thanksgiving coming up. But I was able to watch some football with the family, specifically my dad. Hadn't done that pretty much all, year long. So, or it hasn't been, it's been probably a couple months now, like maybe a month and a half, 2 months since we've got to kick it, watch a little ball together. And it was fun, watching the game with him, and then ultimately watching that Eagles-Cowboys game with him and seeing the excitement that he had with them getting the win, and seeing, just being a part of that was dope, right? It reminded me of last year when we beat Philadelphia in week, what was it, 16, I believe, and how excited we were when we pulled it off. The Eagles, if you're an Eagles fan, you should take solace. I know this doesn't make you feel like tremendously better, but you should take solace in knowing that it's a big deal when you get beat. Like, you've become that good of a football team that when you lose to someone in the division because you win so often, that it's a big deal. Like, Cowboys fans are excited when they beat Washington, but they're not jumping over the damn moon about it. Like, it's a big deal that they beat you guys yesterday. And it was a big deal when we beat you guys last year. So anyway, it was fun watching football yesterday without the stress of this Commanders team weighing you down. But I did have an epiphany over the weekend, and it's going to be an unpopular opinion, and I don't care. I could care less about how people feel about this. But I was sitting down and just, I always think about this team. This team consumes way more of my thought process than it should on a daily basis. It's ridiculous. And maybe it's simply because it's what I do, right? I mean, how much of your work life consumes your thought process throughout the course of the day? I mean, obviously, if you work a 9 to 5, if you actually go to a facility to execute your work, you have to think about it in some capacity while you're there. I happen to work from home. And so while I'm just doing random things, I tend to think about this team, but I just love football in general. So I'm always thinking about football, and this team usually is at the forefront of that. So I'm just thinking about, random things, how I feel. And because I told you guys I was conflicted going into that Dolphins game. Like, I wasn't rooting for a win or a loss. I was just watching the game. Like, that's no way to be as a fan, for me at least. I can't enjoy games going in with no rooting interest. And at my core, I've told you this many a times, especially those of you. For most of you who have been here with me, you know this. For those of you who haven't been here long enough or don't watch enough of my content, you wouldn't be privy to this information. But the whole tanking thing is not in my DNA. It's just not who I am. It's not what I stand for. That's a loser's mentality to me, because winning programs don't get elite players at the top of the draft. The Chiefs, when's the last time the Chiefs drafted in the top 15 of the draft? Getting Patrick Mahomes is my guess. And they still figure out a way to win every year. And again, they're in a different, their program is in a much different space than we are. I get it. But you can find talent. Chris Jones wasn't a first-round pick, just so we're clear. Okay. So you can find talent throughout the course of the draft. You can find guys, et cetera, et cetera. At the end of the day, I made up my mind this weekend. I'm actively rooting for the team to win games. This isn't 2019. This isn't 2023, and this isn't the NBA, right? In the NBA, you gotta have 3 elite players that are top 25, no worse than top 30 in the league, to have a legitimate shot at even sniffing a chip. And if you don't, you better have a league MVP caliber guy leading your team with at least one more top 25 NBA player, with a bunch of great role players and supporting cast members around those 2 stars. But really, you need 3 dudes that are like that in the NBA. So you need to lose. You need to find yourself high in the draft to get those players. You need to make shrewd moves. That's a must in the NBA. You got to get lucky. You got to hit the lottery, etc. You got to increase your chances. I get all of that if this were the NBA. This ain't the NBA. It's the NFL. This is a league where parity is king. We see teams go from worst to first, from the outhouse to the penthouse every single year. It's a week-to-week league. It's a year-to-year league. You already know that every year, 2 or 3 teams that were in the postseason the year before aren't going to be there next year. We can raise our hand and testify to that. We were in the postseason last year. We're definitely not going to be there this year. And there are going to be 2 or 3 more teams that weren't there last year that are going to be in there this year, right? Happens every year because that's the nature of the NFL. And unlike the 2019 and the 2023 seasons where there was a specific goal in mind, a purpose that had to be obtained, right? Those were 2 seasons where you were really angling and aiming for a quarterback. 19, you had Dwayne Haskins, but none of us were sold on him, and we would have traded him out and swapped him out for Joe Burrow in a heartbeat. I know I would have. I can't speak for you. In a heartbeat. God rest the dead. But he would have been gone so fast, it would have made his head spin if Joe Burrow was an option for us. He wasn't. But the next best thing was a guy that we thought was going to change the fortunes of this football team from a defensive standpoint. We thought we were getting another Myles Garrett type of talent. That's what we thought we were getting at number 2 in Chase Young. We were wrong. We were wrong. And that I can't help. I'm human. I can't help but tell you that that has molded my mindset going into this last 6 weeks of the season as well, because you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know if you're drafting Jadeveon Clowney or Chase Young at number 2, or if you're getting Myles Garrett. They can tell us this guy is the next XYZ. That sounds great. And he may turn out to be everything that everybody said he's going to be, but we can't be assured of that. And we don't even know if losing all of these games is going to ensure us this, that, or that, right? We don't know what these other teams in front of us are going to do. We still may not end up with the shit that we want. There's still a lot of bad teams playing football that are in front of us. The Raiders suck. The Titans suck. There are teams that may not win another game this season. The Saints stink. There are a lot of teams that might not win another game this season. So the highest that you may ultimately get is 4 or 5 in the draft, and that still might not land you the guy that you're looking for. Trading back is an option. I'm not concerning myself with any of that anymore. That's not where I am as a fan, because I don't have to be. We got the one guy that we needed to get in 2023, right? The 2024 draft, but the 2023 season netted us the guy that we had to get. I don't have to do the thing that I don't want to do that's against everything in my being and my fibers and my body to do. I don't have to root against this team on a weekly basis. Look, I'm going to tell you like this. I'm rooting for the team to win every single week. Don't give a shit who the opponent is. I especially want to beat Dallas and Philadelphia and the Giants down the stretch. I don't give a shit if you're mad about it, okay? Could care less, actually. I want to win those games. I'm tired of losing to teams. I'm tired of thinking that losing is the answer. It's not the answer. That's loser talk. I want to win football games. I don't want to lose games. I'm tired of losing. Losing sucks. I wish we would have beat the Dolphins in Madrid. I wish our name was on that chyron that said in the hunt. Whether we get there or not is irrelevant. I just want to be relevant. Losing makes you irrelevant. Picking players that you don't even know if they're going to be good in the NFL or not isn't what teams that are actually good outfits worry about. You win football games and you worry about the rest later, especially when it comes to divisional opponents. So for me, if we lose these games, I'm not going to be like super upset as I would be if we were early in the season and these were games that you could be stacking in the left-hand column that could help you win the division or be the number 1 seed. I'm not going to be as pissed as I was when we lost to the Falcons or we lost to the Bears or when we lost to Seattle. I'm not going to be as upset because those games meant a little bit more earlier in the season, right? I'm not going to be as upset. But I'm not rooting actively for this team to lose games. not sitting on the fence, straddling the fence like, I don't really care one way or the other. Bullshit. I'm a fan, and I got to care. I got to stand for something. And I'm standing 10 toes down in the belief that we got the right quarterback. And because we have the right quarterback, and I still believe we have the right coaching staff, personnel guys, I still believe that we got the right guys in charge running the show. You can question them. That's within reason. After seeing some of the things that have been done and seeing how some of these have or haven't worked out thus far, I still think it's very early to be overly critical of these draft, classes and whatnot. But I get it. I understand the apprehension to be all in on a Adam Peters or a Dan Quinn. I get that. And I told you, lusting over other people's young coaches, and that puts you in a very bad headspace. You can admire from afar, but to be lusting over, I want one of those type of guys to be our head coach, that's some nasty work. It puts you in a bad headspace doing that. I'm not looking to be, I want to be content and happy with what we have. And when it's not enough, then I'll look to be in that frame of mind of we need better. We need to improve. We need to upgrade. Right now, a guy that just took us to the playoffs for the first time since 2020, and a guy that just won us a playoff game for the first time since 2005, and a guy that took us to the NFC Championship game for the first time since 1991, and a guy that just won us 2 road playoff games for the first time in franchise history. I can't just turn the other way and look away as if none of that shit happened last year. That wasn't luck. That team believed in what he was preaching last season. These are the right guys for the job until they're not. And for me, winning the games down the stretch is important to building this thing the way that they envisioned it being built. Like, look, no one wanted to be here at 3-8. No one envisioned being here at 3-8. This was not supposed to be what year 2 of Adam Peters, Dan Quinn, and Jaden Daniels was supposed to be about. Injuries decided otherwise. It is what it is. What we can do down the stretch, if we get healthy, and again, health is such a fleeting thing, especially for this team. But if we can get healthy down the stretch, I do want to see Jaden with Terry McLaurin. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later on in the show. Dan Quinn spoke today, talked a lot about the injuries and some updates to guys that are looking to come back onto the field. We'll talk about that ad nauseum a little bit later on in the show. But I'm adamant, and I've been adamant about, I don't want to see Jaden unless he's coming with some guns and shit. Like he can't have this fully automatic weapon that shoots all these rounds and have no ammunition to shoot. Like, it doesn't make any sense to have this great gun that does all of this damage and then have no bullets to actually shoot. We need Terry McLaurin out there. If you don't have Terry, I don't need to see Jaden. I know that's not their mindset. That's mine. But ultimately, I'm telling y'all right now, I can't allow myself to go down the path of rooting for this team to lose football games and rooting for other teams to lose football games so we have a better draft pick, so we can pick a guy like Chase Young and then have him turn out to be ass cheeks 2 years, 3 years down the road. I'm just not doing that. If this group is as shrewd as they say they are, if we believe in them, Adam Peters and Lance Newmark and all these guys to identify talent, then we shouldn't have to have the 3rd pick in the draft to find real talent. And again, maybe he's not that good. Maybe he can't identify talent past the top 10. And maybe this is the problem. And if it is, then we got the wrong guy for the job any goddamn way. I'd rather find that out now than find that shit out 5-6 years down the road. Let's figure it out. If he can't make selections for talented players past the top 10, then we got the wrong guy for the job anyway. We're not going to win a lot of football games. We're not going to be a talented football team anyhow. If we end up with the 16th pick in the draft, we should find a damn good football player at 16 that can help us. A blue chip player. Might not be Bain or Arvell Reese or any of these guys that you're lusting over, but we can find a damn good football player that can help us at 16. Every year, teams do it all the time. Find really good football players where they're drafting that fit their DNA profile, that come in and help their team win football games. So as far as I'm concerned, Win as many of these damn games down the stretch as you can. I don't see us winning anything without Jaden. And honestly, we're going to find out because Jaden's not playing on Sunday. We're going to get into that. He's not playing on Sunday. Didn't think he was going to play after kind of listening to some people talk about the injury and making sense of it. We had an episode last week where the two ESPN insiders spoke and they didn't expect Jaden to play, right? In week 13 versus the Denver Broncos. And it was probably a little far-fetched. And I even thought about like 3 weeks removed from a gruesome looking elbow dislocation. How is that even feasible for him to be back on the field 3 weeks after that? At least that was at least a month, right? At least a month out. So next week would be a month. That feels more realistic than this week. But you're not winning anything without Jaden. I just can tell you that right now. You're not beating anybody without Jaden. But you can be competitive. There's no reason for you to be getting your ass beat the way that we got beat for over a month there, where you're getting beat by 4 touchdowns every week, it feels like. There's no reason for that shit. There's no reason for your coach to be saying, hey, that was the first time we had a lead in what felt like forever, because it really, truly was the first time we had a lead since like week 5. That's ridiculous. But ultimately, or week 6, we had the lead against Dallas after the Daron Payne safety, I believe. He got the safety, then Jaden went down, took us to score a touchdown, and we took a 8-7 lead, I believe it was at that point. We went for 2, didn't get it. That was the last time we led until the Dolphins game in week number 11. That's ridiculous. That's utterly ridiculous. But that's the state of where we have been. But I think the most telling thing coming out of the bye will be this defense and what it looks like under Dan Quinn. If there's a carryover from the Dolphins game, they actually play well. They're not giving up big explosive plays. They're not giving up a bunch of points. It doesn't look, because the Dolphins aren't a great barometer for this defense being better under Dan Quinn. It couldn't be much worse. It didn't feel like it, but it could have been worse. We say that, but it truly could have been worse. We've seen this defense just hit new lows every single week. It could have been worse against Miami, right? Because they're not the Seattle Seahawks. They're not the Detroit Lions. But when you watch the Giants go out and do what they did to the Detroit Lions on Sunday defensively, when you watch the Tennessee Titans, I don't want to say do what they did because they didn't really do anything. They gave up 34 points, but or 30 points. But it wasn't this ass kicking like it was for us, where they actually had to work for the shit that they got. Jackson Smith and Jigba is ridiculous. But ultimately, when you watch other teams be able to slow down the teams that just absolutely ran through our defense like a hot knife through butter, it gives you pause. But the DQ called defense was improved before the bye, and this is going to be a test because Denver's offense isn't great. It's not a great offensive unit. They don't score a lot of points in most weeks, and they live off of mistakes by the opposition. And if you don't turn it over and make mistakes, which we're going to do because we're a bad football team, then they shouldn't be running up the scoreboard on you. But if we allow Bo Nix and company to make it look easy, go up and down the field, score, then the defense is the exact same as it was with Joe Witt. It's just a different guy calling the plays now. So this is a much better barometer. If they shut down Denver's offense, that'll be 2 weeks, 2 games in a row. And this is a better test. Sean Payton knows how to call offense. They've got the weapons to be able to score points on us if we're not sound in our discipline and doing the things that we need to do. It'll be interesting to see if they can do it again, because then that'll give me confidence that I hope JJ McCarthy's healthy. It doesn't matter. Whoever's playing quarterback for the Vikings, they're ass. Whether it's Max Brosmer or it's JJ McCarthy, McCarthy stinks, man. We might be the perfect antidote for him, but I'd love to find out. Like, he's throwing interceptions every week. He's awful. There's no one to save them at this point. If we can't do what everybody else is doing to JJ McCarthy, then again, what does that say about us? We already know that we're the get right game for everybody offensively. So I'm expecting that to be the case, but I won't be expecting that as much if we are able to slow down Denver's offense and make it a ball game. But there will be no Jaden Daniels in that game, and so that gives me less hope that that's a win. Wasn't expecting it to be anyway, but I do expect this team to be competitive. I do expect this team to be in the game and not embarrass us once again on primetime television. It's already been enough of an embarrassment this year being on primetime TV. Once again, against a much better opponent. And once again, without Jaden Daniels, I'm pretty sick of doing this, to be honest with you, without our best guys out of the football field. But it is what it is. Can we just not be an embarrassment? Can we go out there and actually compete at a high level? That would be nice. We'll talk more about that throughout the course of the week. But I'm just here to tell you, and I know this is probably an unpopular opinion, and that's fine by me. I'm not rooting for this team to lose games. If they lose them, cool. I'm not upset, right? I'm not upset. But I'm not rooting for us to lose to Dallas. I'm not rooting for us to lose to the Giants. I'm not rooting for us to lose to Philadelphia. Have you lost your damn mind? I'm not rooting to lose those games against those teams. F those teams. F the Cowboys on Christmas Day. Are you kidding me? F the damn Philadelphia Eagles. Everybody else is beating them this year. I want a piece of that action too. The Giants got them. The Cowboys got them. We need to go ahead and get them too. F that shit. We'll figure out what we're going to do when we get to the draft with the 13th, the 15th, the 11th pick in the draft, whatever that shit looks like. I want to win some damn football games. To hell with all that bullshit. We lose the games, we lose them. We're not a good team this year anyway. But I'm not rooting for this team to lose. We don't need a quarterback in the draft. That's the only way you're going to get me to be on board with losing on purpose is if we are chasing after a quarterback. We were doing that in 2019. We were definitely doing that in 2023. We were very cool with the consolation prize in 2019. I am not cool with any consolation prizes in 2026. That's not where I am in 2025 heading into the 2026 draft. Could care less about any of these guys that you're trying to hype me up on. They might be nice like that. They really might be like that. And that's cool. But I'm not willing to lose to Dallas, Philadelphia, the Giants for that shit. F that. We need to establish who we are. Like the Giants, we need to establish dominance. You are beneath us. Sweep their ass again for the second year in a row. If Jaden Daniels sees the Giants, it's on sight. That's the type of time I'm on. To hell with that bullshit. I don't want to hear Giants fans thinking they can beat us, they can hang with us. F the Giants. Eagles already thinking shit sweet. F the Eagles. Damn sure don't want to lose to Dallas again. Sick of losing to their ass. We got to beat Dak Prescott. I'm sick of that shit. So no, I'm not on board with losing games on purpose. Sorry, not sorry. That's an unpopular opinion, I'm pretty sure. Don't give a shit. That's where I'm at with my own. We're not chasing after a quarterback. We got what we came for 2 years ago in the draft. Man, let's go win some damn football games, man. That's where my head is at. Anyway, I digress. Let's go. In other news. So, we're going to talk about what Dan Quinn had to say. He had a press conference today. We knew the crux of this press conference was going to be centered around injury updates and then like where's your head, your mindset coming out of the bye? What were some of the reflective things that you did over the bye week, self-scouting and such. So we knew that was going to be the bulk of his press conference. So we're going to talk about what he had to say. We're also going to take a look at a quick piece of information that was put out by the team regarding one of those injured players. But before we do all of that, let's go ahead and get a word from one of our sponsors, come back on the other side, and then we'll knock down all of those items very quickly. Sleeper. Sleeper is the best way to experience and connect over sports together. It's a one-stop shop for all of your sports needs. You can celebrate and chat in the games in real time with other users, get the fastest scores, blazing fast news and alerts right at your fingertips. Play in fantasy leagues and win real money on picks contests. So enjoy sports the way they were meant to, together. Download the #1 sports app today. Predict the hottest football stats like passing yards, receiving yards, touchdowns, interceptions, and much more to cash in on your daily fantasy football skills. Use promo code LTN and Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. Sleeper. All right, so before we get to what DQ had to say at his press conference today, let's first take a look at something that the team put out today. And that was a press release that basically said that the team has opened the 21-day practice window for wide receiver Noah Brown. So I treat him like Santa Claus seeing the M&Ms, the Christmas commercial that you're going to start to see here over the next couple of weeks, for the next months or so, right? Classic Christmas commercial where they say, "Oh my God, he does exist," and he goes, "I do exist," and he thinks, right? Noah Brown actually does exist. Oh my God, he does exist. 21-day window. We've been here before. We're not going to let him dupe us again. Until he actually steps on the damn field, he doesn't exist to us. He's a ghost, right? I'm not chasing the ghost either. Not chasing this particular ghost. So, hey, that's cool, but that does also say something else to us. And what that says is Noah Brown isn't playing in week 13 versus the Denver Broncos. I'd even take it a step further and tell you Noah Brown isn't playing next week against the Minnesota Vikings on the road. Noah Brown won't be back until week number 15 versus the New York Giants, and he will be a part of this team for the final 4 games of the season if everything goes according to plan. Generally, what we've seen with guys on these 21-day windows is that they're on that program for at least 2 weeks. And then all of that week heading up to that last week that they can be on that window, and then they open it up that Saturday before the game. So essentially, think about it this way. They opened up the 21-day window of Drake Jackson during the week of Madrid practice. Same with the safety Will Harris, opened up his 21-day window, right? Those guys had all of that week during the Madrid week leading up to the Dolphins game. They had the whole entire bye week, so that's another week. And then they're going to have all this week that they're going to be on the IR still window open, but then they're going to activate those guys on Saturday before the game and make those guys a part of this roster overall. That's how they usually do it. That's what we've seen in the past with guys like Sam Cosmi and, you know, other players that have been on IR for the last year and a half. They've allowed those guys to be all the way through that process. Jonathan Allen last year, and then you get to that last day, you know, the last game that they can be on the, you know, in that practice, that window, that 21-day window, and then they activate them that Saturday. So I think Noah Brown's going to be practicing all this week, practicing all next week, and then the following week against the Giants, he's going to practice that entire week, activated the Saturday before that game. And so you'll see Noah Brown in week 15. That's my guess. I could be wrong, and it could be next week versus Minnesota. Doesn't feel like that. That's not been the way that they've handled players that have their 21-day practice window. They've usually utilized as much of that 21-day window as possible. Usually when that player is roughly 3 weeks out from playing, that's when they activate the window. They miss the next 2 weeks, and then by that 3rd week, they play, right? That's what it feels like is going to happen here. That's what I think is going to happen with Will Harris. That's what's going to happen, I believe, with Drake Jackson and so forth and so forth. So let's get to what DQ had to say at his presser. And let's talk about him starting off his press conference with a Jaden Daniels update. Of course, John Kahn, first question out of the gate, update on Jaden Daniels, and he, you know, the news had already come out on Jaden, right? With Adam Schefter already reporting that Jaden Daniels was going to return to practice this week, but he was not going to play more likely than not. He was still unlikely to play. So DQ confirmed that report that Jaden is going to return to practice this week, but he has not been cleared for contact yet. So they want to see him go through the entire week this week, get the okay and clearance from the doctors. That probably won't come until sometime next week is my guess. And if he continues to hit all the marks, I could see him playing next week against Minnesota. I'm, in my mind, still thinking that the Giants game is the target date. Then you have the final 4 weeks of the season. He's completely healthy. The legs are healthy at that point because you remember he was still dealing with it. There's probably no brace on at that point. It really gives him a chance to fully heal from everything. So it's not a bad thing that all these injuries have happened because he was still playing on a knee that wasn't fully healthy. Then he was playing on on the hamstring that wasn't fully healthy. It was healthy enough. Now, both of those injuries, I would assume, are a lot healthier. And then the elbow is going to continue to heal. So I think Jaden's going to be in a good spot when he finally does come back. And then he will hopefully have weapons. He was asked, how important is it to have Jaden back before the end of the season? And he did a lot of word salad, right? A lot of nothing talk, right? But ultimately, he did say that it is important. He needs reps. He needs to be out there. And that is not false, right? That is true. But at the same time, I think it is important to have him out there. Reps aren't important unless they're meaningful reps with the necessary guys around him. Like I don't care about reps just to get reps. Those aren't smart reps. You put guys out there in harm's way with a bad offensive line, with not enough, and that's not the situation here. We don't have a bad offensive line, but I'm just saying, I've seen quarterbacks destroyed because you just got them reps. You put them out there continuously to get their ass whooped by a bad offensive line. I've seen guys never respond from that and bounce back from that. So I don't think reps are just needed. I think the right type of reps are necessary for development and proper growth. And if you're going to put him out there for reps, it needs to be with Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel at a bare minimum at the receiver position. If those two aren't out there, then you're not getting the type of reps that Jaden needs. And you can see regression from him by putting him out there in situations that aren't healthy for him. So he then gave an injury update, and it was to a number of guys. So Terry, he's somewhat optimistic about Terry potentially playing this week, but I said this already. It's like Married with Children. You know what he said? Love and marriage, love and marriage. And at the end of the song, he says, you can't have one without the other. That's how I feel about Terry and Jaden. You can't have one without the other. Terry and Jaden, Terry and Jaden. They better both be out there at the same goddamn time. I've already done the Jaden without Terry movie. That shit is nasty. I've already seen the Terry without Jaden movie with Marcus. That shit looked good for Terry, but then he got hurt, and then it was nasty for Jaden when he came back. I don't want to see the shit no more. I done seen the movie both ways. I don't want to see the movie without both of them in it. All right? Don't make a sequel if they both ain't in the movie, okay? I don't want to see it. I want to see it. So, for me, if Jaden's not going to be back this week, Terry don't need to be back this week. I don't care if he's ready to go. To hell with that shit. Bring Terry's ass back next week with Jaden. That's where I'm at mentally. Because if Terry gets hurt again, you're going to bring Jaden back anyway, and now you done F the shit up again. Just bring them back together, bro. Just bring them back together. One more week for Terry should do him wonders. He'll be 1 week healthier. Think about it that way. No need to rush. We've waited this long. We can wait one more week. We probably ain't beating Denver with Marcus Mariota any goddamn way. Just one more week. One more week. Jaden will be back next week. Terry will be back next week. Now we can really assess this shit. He gave us a Noah Brown update. He's 21-day window is open. I already told you, don't expect Noah to be ready until the Giants game. That's my mindset. Drake Jackson is another guy that they're excited about. I think he's going to play this week. Same with Will Harris. He talked about Will Harris being further along in the process than everyone else. In my mind, Drake Jackson, Will Harris are going to play. Terry, Noah, and Jaden Daniels should not be playing. Well, okay. Jaden and Noah already are not playing. Okay. I can tell you that right now with 100% certainty. Neither one of those guys are playing this week. Terry's the wild card. I say he shouldn't play either. He shouldn't play either. And DQ was non-committal enough on Terry that it gives me confidence that he understands the assignment, that he gets it. So that's your injury update. I was shocked nobody asked any questions about Jalen Lane, and no one asked questions about, there was one more player that I was curious about that got a little, nicked up last game. But I think the Wednesday injury report will be pretty big. It'll be a big one because we'll get a sense of who's practicing at what level, where we at in the process. So I think Wednesday's injury report will be a pretty significant one. He was asked, did they play more zone coverage versus Miami? They did. He said they did play more zone, but certain situations, because of all the shifts and emotions that Miami has pre-snap, that was a big deal. He asked if having the team perform at a playoff level for the final 6 weeks of the season is a big deal. He's like, that's the standard. It's not about performing at that level for the final 6 weeks. That's what we're supposed to do every week. And we haven't done that, but we got to start doing that here. And that's got to be the standard every week we step on the football field. It ain't supposed to be, well, we got to get to that level. After that, we're supposed to already be at that level. That's the perfect answer there. He talked about what does he need to see from this team to confirm that they're playing at the level that is acceptable to be at the Commander standard. And he's like, he needs to see the turnover margin be flipped, meaning we don't turn it over and we force turnovers. And I love that he said, because, you know, this shit is a pet peeve of mine. I love that he said, I'm not one of these coaches that says turnovers come in bunches. He's like, bullshit, you got to go create these turnovers. You got to go get them. They're not going to just fall in your lap. Oh, they come in. That's that Jack Del Rio dumb defensive coordinators 101 bullshit that you say. Like, coach speak for defensive coordinators when you ain't getting turnovers. They come in bunches. They'll come. I told the players they'll come. Just keep getting after it. Bullshit. Bullshit. They don't come in bunches. Create some damn turnovers. That's what DQ basically said. He said, we got to stop with the pre-snap penalties. He's right. Can't have the false starts. Can't have the illegal shifts, the illegal motions. Can't have the illegal formations. All the shit that's avoidable before the ball's even snapped. We can avoid all of that. Stop hurting ourselves that way. And then he said, we got to play with more urgency, with more speed. That can show up as well. Those are things that have to happen in order for this thing to be at the level that it's supposed to be. He said he then talked about needing to see everybody back, and a lot of word salad there, you know, just talking about random shit. And ultimately, he wants to see everybody back. I've already spoken on this. I think we as fans deserve to see a offense that fields Jaden, Terry, Debo. Noah is optional. If he's out there, cool. If not, I don't really give a shit. You know, Ertz and Laramie Tunsil. Right. And then, you know, Sam Cosmi. We deserve to see an offense that fields all these guys and just see what it looks like. Right. He was asked, was there ever any thought to having Jaden be done for the season? And he pretty much danced around it, but in a roundabout way, he basically said, nah, we really never did. We had the bye. We knew we had the bye week coming up. You know, the doctors told us that it wasn't as significant as we thought. So, you know, he never gave thought to that, basically, is what he said without saying it. He then talked about calling the plays. I'm not sure that DQ is not our play caller next year. Like, he talked about loving the chaos of calling plays on game day and all that it entails and how he's so comfortable in being in that space. Maybe he's really, truly supposed to be a defensive coordinator, not a head coach. That might be a real thing. Some guys are better suited to be coordinators than they are head coaches. We'll see. DQ strikes me as a leader of men, though. He strikes me as a guy that can rally the troops and be a leader of men to the point where he's supposed to be a head coach, not a coordinator. But I think he wants to call plays, but I don't think he wants the responsibility of having to call plays. Like, he's got other duties that he would rather oversee than having to put together a game plan and be in charge of that. But I do think he misses calling plays. He talked about living in that chaotic space and how he thrives in it. I'm not so sure we'll be looking for a defensive coordinator next year. Maybe we will. But I'll just say this. I wouldn't necessarily dismiss the mindset of DQ being our defensive coordinator next year. Doing what's best for Jaden, the team, etc. He talked about, you know, putting players first when it comes to injuries, not talking, because it felt like DQ was desperate. You know, it got to a point in the season, and, you know, DQ could correct me if I was having a conversation with him. He'd probably correct me and say, no. It's never about me. You know, it's always about the player first, then the team, and then the organization overall. But it's always player first. It felt like DQ was trying to get guys back, and maybe a little bit sooner than they needed to be. Even though they usually take their time with guys, it's in particular with Jaden, it felt like now we got to get him back on the field. He gives us it wasn't to the extent of Brian Daboll, going into the blue tent to go retrieve his star quarterback Jackson Dart to get him back on the field so they could beat Philadelphia. But it felt like whatever 2 steps below that is, that's what it felt like. Like, hey, I know he probably could use another week off, but hey, we could really use him this week. We trying to win a game. Same with Debo. Like, he probably should have sat out of that Bears game. He shouldn't have been out there. They really wanted to win that game, though. He probably should have been out there. He should have had that week off, and then maybe he would have been able to play against Dallas in week 6, and maybe we win that game. We'll never know, right? He then talked about the commander standard and the mindset there, right? Dorrance, too, that's a good one as well, Glizzy McGuire. Like, Dorrance shouldn't have been out there against Dallas. Everyone knew he was banged up. He should not have been out there. Rushed him back and then tore his damn knee up. Shouldn't have been out there. And he talked about what that mindset is and building that and all of that good stuff. So he talked about that, which is, he's like, a lot of it is it's on display now. You're seeing what guys are really made of, which we've talked about in the past. In times of adversity, that's when you find out the true test of a man's character. Not when shit's going well. Everybody's up when shit's going well. What are you going to do when shit's going bad? Right? It's no different than what are you doing when no one's watching? It's easy to put on for people when everybody's looking at you. What are you doing behind closed doors when no one's watching? Are you still putting in the work that needs to be put in to have the success? And then he talked about Johnny Newton. Ben Stanley asked him about Johnny Newton and like, hey, look, bro, I know you talked about wanting to win versus playing young players. You really ain't about that shit. But Johnny Newton had a chance to play significant snaps with Deron out of the lineup, and he really didn't have any more snaps than he had in previous weeks when you had a Deron Payne healthy with Javon Kinlaw. So what's the deal with Johnny Newton? What you need to see from him for him to get more snaps? And he really didn't answer the question. He basically just said Johnny's playing well. And DQ did say that the interior defensive line is one of the strongest parts of the team, which he's not wrong. That has been one of the most effective portions of this team from a standpoint of them doing their jobs. We don't get a lot of pressure on the quarterback per se from that group, but they do stop the run at a very healthy clip on the inside. You can count on Javon Kinlaw, Deron Payne, and Eddie Goldman in particular to stop the run. And then he said that Johnny has been doing a really good job of using his quickness to get in the backfield to affect the play of the quarterback, which, again, I ain't gonna lie to you, I haven't been watching film this year like I should. The state of this team has caused me to not even want to watch these shits back. And again, that's bad on my part, because whatever this team is doing, I need to be informed, and the only way to be informed is to watch the film. That tells the story. So I'm guilty of falling into the trap of just being so this team has made me so disinterested at times and so disappointed that I didn't even want to watch the film. And that's bad on my part. But DQ's trying to convince me that the film says that Johnny's playing well. I bet you if I watched it'd say he's been basic. But it is what it is. We'll see what happens with Johnny Newton moving forward. So anyway, let's get to the one comment we have, and then we'll get out of here. And I'll let you guys prepare for Monday Night Football, and hopefully you'll join me for the overtime show of that. This is from Braxton White. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Braxton writes, why can't Madrano get snaps? 4.4 speed being wasted. We need to see what he's got, because it's not as simple as being fast. That's not why you get put on the field. I'll just tell you like this. There are a lot of people in that are around that building that think he can't play yet. And that's not a knock on Madrano. This is a former offensive player that was converted to linebacker. He's still extremely raw at the position. He was one of the worst tackling linebacker. He was the worst tackling linebacker in the entire NFL draft last year, and one of the worst tackling players in the draft overall last year. So he's got a long ways to go. Like, just because he's fast, this ain't Madden. You don't just put a guy on the field because he's super fast and then say, I'll play with him. You know, he's got 89 speed at linebacker. I'll play with him. I'll be able to run sideline to sideline and control him. That's not how this works. You know, I don't think they feel comfortable with him being on the field right now. And that's okay. Because I told y'all before the season started, that's a 6th-round pick that shouldn't see the field this year. That's a redshirt 6th-round pick. Keep in mind what 6th-round picks are. I think we've fallen into the trap because we only had 5 picks of thinking that 6th-round picks are somehow 3rd-round picks. 6th-round picks don't usually make NFL rosters. The only reason that all of these picks are going to make this team for the next 2-3 years is because our roster is in dire straits and we're still turning it over. But don't get it twisted. A 6th-round pick ain't supposed to make your team unless he's out here balling, and that's not what Kane Medrano is doing. So I don't have any issues with him not playing. He's not the one. Jordan McGee is the one where I'm like, hey, you better find a way to get him on the field. Not Medrano. But we'll see what Medrano can do in year 2. I wouldn't be shocked if Medrano gets cut next year. They get to year 2, and it's just like Dominique Hampton, where they realize this shit ain't going to work, and they move on. I wouldn't be shocked. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but I wouldn't be shocked if it did. So, anyway, I digress. That is going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on this installment of Commanders Nightly News. I look forward to chopping it up with y'all next time. So now you know where I stand moving forward the rest of this season. I don't really give a shit. Let's go win some football games, man. I'm trying to build this thing into a perennial winner. You can't do that by losing football games. And I know where some of your thought process, and again, I'm not going to shit on you for wanting to lose and wanting to get this high-level prospect, and hopefully he turns into a Michael Parsons type, and all of a sudden the defense is electrifying. That's great too. And if that happens, I'm not against that. I'm just not rooting for it. I'm not rooting for it. I'm not rooting actively for my team to lose games against teams that I want to see fail. I don't want the Giants to be better than us. I don't want the Eagles to be better than us. I don't want the Eagles to beat us and think that they have some sort of chokehold or stranglehold over us. Every year, this is what they're supposed to do to us. Bullshit. They need to know that you could get touched at any point, bro. The Giants touched those boys this year. The Cowboys touched those boys this year. I don't want to be the one that says, nah, you get a free pass, bro. You can sweep us. Bullshit. Touch their ass. And I don't want to do it in week 18 when they don't have shit on the line and they're playing backup so they could use that as an excuse. I want to reach out and touch their ass when they starters out there actively trying to chase after the #1 seed, and I want to put a halt to that shit. F them. That's where I'm at with mine. So now you know where I stand. I think it's an unpopular opinion. Don't give a shit. You guys enjoy the rest of your evening. I look forward to chopping it up with you again tomorrow. And the Kings will have their special Thanksgiving episode tomorrow. That's going to be a big show. I hope you join us for that. We're going to talk everything Thanksgiving with a little Commanders on the side. If that's not your thing, then I'll see you guys for the next one. But you should want to come out. That's going to be fun. Anyway, I digress. You guys enjoy the rest of your evening. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap. Hand to Riggins. Good hold. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35. The